Welcome to the Open Source Technology Center. I'm your host, Dan Feinberg, and I'm joined once again by Eric Kazmarek and Soji Denloye. Today we're talking about big data technologies, and this is our fourth chapter, so we're ready to talk about NoSQL data stores. Soji, what are NoSQL data stores?
The main difference between NoSQL data stores and traditional databases is that in a traditional database, there are formal restrictions on your schema, which requires you to know it beforehand before you put it into the database. The implication is that for NoSQL data stores, you can have all kinds of structured and unstructured data populate your database.
Well, Eric, how does that impact scalability of a NoSQL data store?
That's a great question. Actually, it's the big advantage of NoSQL. In a typical RDBMS database, it's not as simple as just adding a new machine to your cluster and scaling your data. There's a lot of much more work involved, more licenses to buy from Oracle or somebody else, for example. Whereas here, with NoSQL, that means Cassandra, HBase, and some other ones, you essentially get a new machine, put it on your cluster, hook it up to your network, and that's it, voila, you have added more capacity.
Eric, I understand that NoSQL also has advantages over Hadoop. Can you talk to us about that?
So as I mentioned before, Hadoop is all batch-based, and it's really throughput-based, right? You can wait a day or an hour or 10 minutes for your results to come back. Whereas NoSQL databases, or data stores, I should say, they're really based on latencies, how quickly that I can get that information back to the end user.
So are there certain times that you'd rather use Hadoop and other times that you'd rather use a particular NoSQL database?
Absolutely. If you want to have any real-time usage of your, your application, so an example we just talked about it, I would not run Hadoop on my car, right? Clearly, if I want live information about traffic or about other data like this, I cannot wait 5 minutes or even 3 minutes. Anything real-time will be more targeted at NoSQL frameworks.
Soji, can you tell us a little bit about some of the performance issues that we're finding with NoSQL these days?
One of the biggest contributing factors to high latencies is the garbage collection. So with large memory systems, it takes a long time to free up memory because Java does that for you. So one of the things that we're looking at is to optimize this, use different algorithms or better tuning.
So Eric, Soji just talked about garbage collection, which is really a Java issue, but it came up in the context of NoSQL. And that implies something to me about the approach that Intel takes to big data technologies. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We look at the entire software stack, and that means, and hardware stack at the same time. We look at Hadoop optimizations. We look at even optimizing your applications. Then we look at the Java part, which is on its own a pretty large project there. And even beyond this, we spend quite a bit of time looking at the kernel. Intel is the #1 Linux kernel contributor, for example, right? At the same time, we work with hardware teams within Intel on optimizing the hardware itself for Hadoop, big data, and so on.
Well, thank you, Eric and Soji. I learned a lot about big data technologies, and I hope our audience did too. And I want to thank you for joining us for this video series, and I hope you'll visit the Open Source Technology Center at 01.org. Thank you.